Yo, it is officially 11 past 1 p.m. and I've just found myself a nice spot. I've rode my bike and I just found a cool little secluded location. It's a little bit windy, so I might actually hop closer to the trees just so I get a little bit more protection from the wind, just so it's not too harsh on the microphone, I guess. Welcome back to Semen Retention. If it's your first time here, well, congratulations, you've found a channel that, in my opinion, is quite woke and awakened. That's what I mean by woke. I don't mean any other kind of BS, but yeah, I talk about semen retention here. I talk about spirituality, ascension, the chakras, getting closer to God, destroying the ego and all that kind of stuff. And today I want to talk about one of the biggest cons of all time in human history, and that's communication. Right now, how am I communicating? Well, I'm communicating to you three different ways. The first one, the most obvious, is I'm using my voice. My voice is projecting ideas that are inside my brain and also that come from my heart to you. And also I'm communicating via digital message, via satellite, via video cameras, via microphones, and broadcasting it through speakers, so therefore you can hear me. The other form of communication is actually not something you can see. It's not something you can touch. It's not something you can actually hear with your physical ears. It's not something that you can even, you can't feel it with your hands, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it. You can only feel it from a instinctive, intellectual level and heartfelt level. And that is today's discussion, which is telepathy. So my own, if I was to use a real basic summary of what telepathy is, I'd say that it is basically the synchronization of your heart, your head, and your throat chakras that allow a method of communicating between you and God. The illusion of self comes down to the fact that maybe we might be communicating with other people, but at the end of the day we're just communicating with God, because we're all just vessels having this, this life, this experience here in different bodies, different timelines and all that kind of stuff. But the messages that we share is between you and God. So I guess it's the original way of communicating before we had any devices, before we even were physical beings. We have lost touch with this ability, and that in itself has a lot of issues. I reckon it is how we used to communicate for a very, very, very long time, and I'm talking thousands of years. I think before we started writing, we were communicating telepathically. I reckon even before we even started to develop languages, we were telepathically communicating. But due to technology, AI, and in the future, which will be transhumanism and posthumanism, basically we're going to be continuously fighting against the suppression of our natural gift of telepathy. So in regards to semen retention, what does telepathy have to do with any of it? So when you're on a long streak of semen retention, your seminal fluids travel up from your sacral or your root chakra all the way up through to your crown chakra, or on a more kind of basic kind of terminology, your semen travels all the way up from inside your testes into your brain. That's just how it is. So what happens is you end up having these different kind of experiences occurring when you start to replenish your natural life force energy. So the first experience that I found is that I started to have a bit more vivid dreams, a lot more synchronicities, and then lately I've been finding the power of my voice is starting to become unnatural in the sense of what I'm able to do with just projecting frequencies, pitches, and words into the universe. So with this kind of like practice of, semen retention, our instincts and our intuitions heighten. Like I remember I was sitting at the beach one day, I was reading a book, gone for a swim, just chilling. I saw some clouds, they didn't look too bad, but they were like suggesting there is a chance that could be like rain or something like that. I was feeling okay, but I was like, you know what, I don't know. I don't know if I should go now or not, because the beach was packed and the last thing you want to do is be scrambling out of the beach amongst other people that don't know how to, like in Australia we've got a lot of people that come to our country and they don't even know like what they're doing at the beaches. They litter it, they just leave things there, they don't respect the beach, and I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of people that don't know how to walk out of a beach, because they'll cause a massive mess, and I don't want to be part of that vibe, that frequency. So what I did is I kind of needed a confirmation from God, and the first thing that happened was a dog barked right next to me. A dog just let out this massive bark, and I was like, all right, I'm going. I packed up my things and then I left. Straight away, the wind started picking up. There was like a shift in energy across the whole beach, and I was already walking out. Within 15 seconds, the winds were picking up really hard. I saw sand flying everywhere, and people were just kind of going crazy. So it was just kind of funny to see that I missed the franticness, the mayhem, because my intuition and my instinct, coupled with the fact that the dog barked, dogs are much more intuitive and instinctual than human beings, because we've been programmed into thinking that we need to read things like a weather broadcast, or we need to hear something like an alarm go off in order for us to act. Whereas the truth is that through telepathy we are able to download this information and we're able to act upon what is being said to us. So other kind of things about telepathy is like astral awareness and meeting and having conversations with people in different dimensions, whether they're people or not. They could just be other beings, communications with God, communications with afterlife, people that have passed away. I can't think off the top of my head about like an afterlife kind of experience, except for one with my cat. I had a cat. I got it in November 2023, and it died last year, December 2024. So it only lived for 1 year. It was a stray kitten, and I adopted it, and then it died last year. I was cleaning the house last week, and I noticed a little bit of fluff from the cat had crept underneath the fridge or something like that, and I picked it up and I like kind of sniffed it. I was just wondering if it still smelled like him, but it kind of didn't. But anyway, so I threw it into the garden, and then a couple of days later I had a dream of like a snake. I forget what color it was, I think it was brown, and it was attacking me. And then my cat came and defended me and started attacking the snake. Now, I'm not going to make this video as to what I interpreted that dream to be, but it was comforting to know that I'm still in contact with my cat. And yeah, that's part of that whole realm of telepathy and your third eye and all that kind of stuff, is that you are in these different dimensions. So one thing that I want to talk about is, like we kind of have this hive mind that we're part of. In the physical realm, the hive mind, you could call it social media, because that's where most people get brainwashed. That's where most people develop and are propagated, into a collective kind of way of thinking. The events that happened 5 years ago in 2020 into 2022 just goes to show the power of a physical kind of hive mind that is influenced by social media. In the spiritual realm, and when you're practicing things like semen retention, you don't need to tap into the physical hive mind. You actually tap into the universal hive mind, which is on a higher frequency, and it is something that is always going to be beneficial for you, and it's always going to be beneficial for everyone else in the collective, because again, as I said earlier in this video, we're just little fragments of God, experience different ways of ourselves. So when you're tapped into that hive mind, you actually get the same message no matter where you are on the world. And that's why I've noticed that in the semen retention community, the legit retainers are starting to share similar ideas at the same time. And I'm talking literally hours, if not minutes, within uploading. So I don't think anyone's stealing anyone's ideas. I don't think any of that's going on. I think retainers know who real retainers are. There's a lot of fake semen retention channels out there, but I'm not going to get into that. I don't really care. So what I've found is that men, when we're tapped in, we're locked into this frequency. We are getting those downloads, and as a result, good things are happening. So, I'm going to finish with a couple more points and then wrap this up. Nikola Tesla is a good case study of someone who experiences telepathy and, is receiving those messages from God. Nikola Tesla describes his way of receiving creativity, receiving insights, as literal inventions would manifest in front of his eyes. So I'm sitting here, I'm just looking over there, and just imagine that bike doesn't exist and has never existed before in the history of humanity. Nikola Tesla would just see that. It would just literally manifest in front of him. That's how he operated. That's how plugged in to the collective kind of hive mind. That's how close he was to God. And he had an extremely rare gift. And basically Nikola Tesla would, because he was such a genius, he knew the mathematics of it, he knew how to solve the problems. There was a story of when he was drowning, when he was swimming underneath something, and he was close to drowning, but in his mind he solved how to get out of that situation just through his understanding of physics and how he imagined the layout of I think it was a dam or something like that to be. He was stuck and he was going to drown, but he managed to solve that. And the thing is, to further support this and relate it back to semen retention, Nikola Tesla was a celibate. He was a celibate his whole life. I think he was a celibate his whole life, but basically, let's not fool around here, guys. That's just the reality, is that when you are on semen retention, or in my case, Steven retention, shout out to all the subscribers, new ones, like and comment if you like this video. We are all on this practice, and we are receiving high level downloads, high quality things. We're not getting brainwashed by the advertising. We're not falling for the billboards. We're not falling for the other BS. yeah, we're literally plugged into nature. We're plugged into the real essence of what it's like to live an earthly experience. So yeah, we're really benefiting from this, and I want you guys to just take an opportunity to go out and do some research and read Nikola Tesla's book. I will upload a photo of it when I find it again. I think it's not at my house. It must be at my parents' house or something like that. But I'll upload a photo of the book so you can check it out. It's a good book. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is musicians, writers, and artists, and how telepathy relates to them. So when it comes to artists, I guess, and writers, you know, they're using that kind of downloads. They're getting inspiration. Like futurists, you know, like people that kind of like design things about the future and all that kind of stuff. I imagine them to be having these insights from God as to what it's like to travel time, and they're doing some timeline jumping to, you know, create some designs. Now, I'm not going to talk about artists too much because they're a bit more visual. Writers, I think, again, it's kind of similar thing. You know, you're writing, you're using words, you're describing things that have happened. Sometimes you have creative insights through the voice of God, through your writing. Now, when it comes to musicians, it's totally different, because musicians is a whole unique kind of experience. In order for music to be pleasant, it needs to have a rhythm, it needs to have a harmony, and it needs to feel like it is moving. If it is just stuck on a loop, then it's not going to make you feel much. You'll feel whatever's that, you know, that loop cycle, and that's about it. So if I was to play a gig by myself and I just looped a little drum beat, like say if I just like went into the microphone, I hit record on the loop pedal and I went, then the loop's going, and then I'm just kind of like over the top jamming, and then I start like this whole song. I reckon it would take about 1 minute 30, 2 minutes for the average human being to be like, all right, I'm sick of it already. That's just the way it is, because I think you gotta keep it interesting. You can't just be looping around. That's why we have bands. That's why collaborating with other musicians is important, because what happens when you're locked in with bands? And I was reading a book which is by my favourite band. They're two members, Ben Gillies and Chris Joannou from Silverchair. And Ben Gillies talks about this thing called alchemy between the band. Like, he could never find other musicians to jam with after Silverchair broke up, because he thought that there was no real alchemy amongst the musicians that he played with compared to Silverchair. And that is 100% true. So what it is you develop this chemistry, but I wouldn't even call it chemistry. I'd call it a synchronistic kind of experience between multiple entities, and they're sharing an experience within a room, within a specific time that cannot be replicated. And this is where telepathy comes in, is that when you hit a note all at once, you don't even have to look at each other. When you all hit a note at that perfect point, it is like literally threading a needle. It is like when musicians, what we say, lock in, where there's like a specific point in time that you just have to hit. And when that happens, the whole energy of the room starts vibrating at a higher frequency. And this has nothing to do with the speed of the music. This has nothing to do with the key of the music. This has nothing to do with the content of the lyrics, the sounds, the effects being used, the instruments being used. It is literally just a synchronization on a telepathic level between musicians. Now, sometimes you might be like, well, what about if you play with musicians long enough, you understand their habits and what they're going to do? It's not about habits. It's about a telepathic thing where musicians sometimes will do things and work together, and then a whole new section of music is literally written with musicians on the fly. which is just like crazy. I've been in enough bands to experience this. When the chemistry is strong, when the alchemy is tight, when the connection, the heartfelt frequencies between you and the other musicians are in sync, miracles occur on a creative level. And that is through the act of telepathy. All right, guys, I'm going to show you this just to finish off. It just started trickling down some rain, so enjoy some nice visuals and some ambience. And I'll catch you on the next Steven retention video. Peace out.